guys, and listen, guys, I train, and I not just train wrestling, I train boxing. And listen, guys, one more thing.
You know, there's a couple hills I'll die on, but I would not die on that one.
Sergey, not Spivak.
It's no secret. I've made a video specifically on why I think Peyton Talbot is going to be champion, and I have not changed my mind.
What fighter has the highest fight IQ?
I don't think there's nobody in the game that has the fight IQ that I have.
Off the charts.
His IQ
the
is
highest
insane.
fight IQ maybe ever.
This guy hits hard. He's tough. He's this, he's that. And this guy has a dream. But my fight IQ will win this fight.
Welcome to the Fight IQ podcast. Finally, it is UFC 311 fight week, and we are back with another episode of Fight Forecast. This overall is looking like one of the best cards I've seen in a long time. We got a rematch for the main event. We got some beef in the co-main event. We got Kevin Holland versus Rainier DeRitter opening up the main card. Peyton Talbot, future champ. A lot of cool shit. A lot of cool shit on this card. But let's start at the very bottom. Tagir Ulanbekov versus Clayton Carpenter. I'm just going to start off. I'm going Clayton Carpenter here. Tagir Ulanbekov is good, but, man, he lacks finishing ability. He doesn't have a single win by KO. So you would think his strength going into this would be the submission grappling, which he does have a good amount of submissions, but Carpenter is just going to be way stronger. He's undefeated. He's got a very good submission game of his own and much stronger wrestling, it seems. I'm going with Carpenter here.
Nice. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to agree with you on this one. I was looking at it. I didn't know a ton about either of them, but having looked into them a little bit here, I did like to see that Clayton Carpenter had a significant amount more finishing ability than his opponent. And for that reason alone, I think I'm going to have to go Carpenter on this one. We've seen a few really hot prospects in the flyweight division where they're coming in undefeated with a lot of momentum. And it seems like recently a lot of them have been able to maintain that. So I'd like to see Clayton be able to do that as well.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to go with Tagir on this one. He has a lot more experience in the UFC, and his only slip-up was against Tim Elliott, which was a pretty competitive fight. I feel like Tim Elliott just showed up as a world beater on that one. I do think that this is going to be a really tough fight for him because Tagir typically does struggle with fighters that can nullify any sort of grappling that he wants to implement. He's a good striker, but he also likes to, have the option to grapple if he needs to. And with Tim Elliott out scrambling him and stuff like that, I feel like if Carpenter is able to do somewhat the same and nullify his grappling and have success on the feet, it could go pretty south for him. But I think Tagir's experience in the UFC is going to kind of be what's going to get him the edge in this one, probably by a decision, maybe a split decision. But yeah, I'll go with Tagir on this one.
The thing is though, Tagir has more experience in the UFC, but he doesn't fight very often. I think that experience serves you well if you have a good strength of schedule. But I feel like Tagir's only fighting once a year. I just think, I don't know. I think it's been tough for him to build that momentum.
100%. Yeah, it's really tough when you're, not fighting as often, but there are some fighters that can, fight once a year and come out and put on a crazy good performance, like Mike Davis, yeah. Peyton Talbot. There's a lot of fighters that only fight kind of once a year or maybe twice. But, at the end of the day,
Peyton
I think
Talbot, don't throw shade on our boy's name, bro. He fought three times in the last year.
Dude, he should have fought. He should have fought a lot sooner than today, dude.
But I think that might be opponents not accepting the fight.
Yeah.
Once you start getting some big wins in the UFC, you start to get some people in the division start to get a little more tentative around accepting fights with you.
Yeah, especially if you're getting lower paid, like the pay brackets. You don't want to fight Peyton Talbot for fucking 15 and 15,
Yeah, dude.
That's just a bad
bad move.
You're gonna get highlight reeled.
Bad move. But
I think the UFC, and I guess we'll talk about it in a bit, I think the UFC sees some star power with Peyton, and so I think there may have been a little bit of let's try and put him on a bigger card. We've done that with bantamweights that have been successful in the past, Sean O'Malley, where if we put him on the undercard, they'll get the hype around him, and then
Sure.
you know, it's a big enough person to where we can start talking main events in a couple fights.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at
Yeah.
that. We couldn't hold ourselves back from talking about Peyton
Yeah.
Talbot. We
So
couldn't
excited.
even get to the second
He is
fight on
so
the
hot
card.
right now.
All right.
I'm so stoked to see him fight again.
All right. But let's move up to another bantamweight fight on the card: Ricky Tercios versus Bernardo Sopai. Yeah. What are you guys thinking here?
Yeah, you know, I went with Bernardo Sopai, which is it's interesting. He's 0-1 in the UFC right now, but he's a pretty big favorite coming into it.
Yeah, he got a tough debut. Really, really tough
He
debut.
did. He had a really tough debut. He's had some really good success in like his previous organizations up to the UFC, so I think they see something in him. And for me personally, I've never been a big fan of Ricky Tercios. He's always been a little lackluster for me. So I think for that, I'm going to go with Sopai just because I do think that there is something to this kid and he just had a tough debut. And then I think he's probably going to come back and try and make a statement this time.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Arman Sopai. I think Ricky Tercios is just one of those people that just kind of is mid everywhere. Not the best striker, not the best grappler. He can fumble like pretty locked in submissions, you know. Stuff like that, like stuff that he should be finishing, he seems to let slip out of his fingers, and then after that, the momentum always shifts like dramatically.
Yeah.
Ricky Tercios is really entertaining to watch. He has a very fun style, but I feel like Arnal is going to come in there and put the work in. I don't think he's going to get a finish, probably going to be a decision, but I think, Ricky Tercios is not going to have the skill set to beat him.
Yeah, I think it'll be probably like one of those 29-20, like a clear 29-28 for Sopai. And he does have good finishing ability on the feet, but Ricky Tercios somehow evades like getting finished. And Sopai does have good boxing. He throws good leg kicks, but I think really the key for him here is he also has good takedown defense. He's fought strong grapplers before, and seems to be able to keep it on the feet where he wants it. And I think he'll just outland Tercios, who doesn't really put it together. All right, let's go up. Rinya Nakamura versus Muin Gafarov. We got one of the last hopes for Japanese MMA here in Rinya Nakamura. Him and Rei Tsuruya are the last two undefeated Japanese fighters in the UFC. And I am gonna go with Rinya to get it done. I think he's strong. He's obviously got the strong wrestling background, and he has a lot of wins by KO TKO, surprisingly, even though he's got the wrestling background. And fucking Gafarov has that random fucking patch of back hair that pisses me off. So I just want him to lose. Every time I see him fight, I'm like, bro, just fucking shave it. Enough is enough already.
Yeah. Crazy.
I think I'm going to have to agree with you on this one. I'm going for Rinya as well. There's part of me that just really wants to see a Japanese fighter be able to come in with the hype. You know, we had the two at flyweight that unfortunately didn't go quite as well, but that's a different story. I think it would be cool to see a Japanese fighter find the success and kind of realize some level of forward momentum when they hit the UFC rather than kind of hitting this barrier every time. He does look really good, obviously, and a really strong wrestling background is always going to be good coming into MMA. Being able to mix that up with his striking, I think he gets it done.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, man. I'm also going to go with Rinya Nakamura. I feel like the UFC is kind of giving him a layup right now. I know that Gafarov is coming off a win, but pretty much he's lost every other UFC appearance he's had before that. And I really feel like they want to invest in Rinya Nakamura because he has a lot of star power in Japan. I want to say he's somehow related to like that wrestler Nakamura as well because he was in the corner for his last fight, and they made a really big deal about that. I think he's like super famous as well. So I feel like they really want to start investing in that Japanese market, and we're seeing all these really nice Japanese prospects, and they're going to want to start giving them layups so they don't get fraud checked too quick,
Yeah,
Yep.
and I wonder when, if you look at back in the Olympics, Japan has always had a strong Olympic wrestling team. Like even when Cejudo won Olympic gold, his opponent in the finals was a Japanese dude who I think had won gold the year before, or the Olympics before that. I think it just kind of proves that wrestling is a better base for MMA. At least we're seeing it with these recent Japanese fighters like Rinya and Rei Saruya, and even Tatsuro Taira has really, really strong wrestling and made it super far in the division. And I still think we'll have a lot of success in the flyweight division. But I just think like more Japanese wrestlers need to get into the sport of MMA, because we see a lot with like the K1 kickboxers, but they just don't have a ton of success when they reach the sport of MMA. I think wrestling for the Japanese guys is going to be the key.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Eileen Perez, the GOAT, versus Carol Hossa. What do we think?
Nice. I mean, I've got Eileen Perez for this one. You know, she's on a 4-fight win streak right now. She got an arm triangle choke in her last time out, which was really nice. Outside of that, obviously a lot of decisions, but pretty solid decisions every time. I mean, here at the Fight IQ podcast, we tend to be big fans of Eileen Perez. So I think I'll speak for myself and say that I think that's who's got this one on lock for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not just because she's got that cake. She's been legitimately winning fights most of the time by finish. Yeah, when it comes down to it, like Hossa only beats fighters where when you look at the matchup, you're like, oh yeah, Hossa's definitely gonna win. Like if she fights anyone who's generally on the same level as her or higher, she's most likely gonna lose. Yeah.
I think Eileen Perez is also going to take this one. She's usually very dominant in her grappling, and it seems like that seems to be a sore spot for Rosa. She does seem to lose all of her big fights, so I think it's just going to be one of those fights that Eileen just comes in and she might be able to get a finish, because lately she's been getting a lot of submissions and stuff like that with her grappling and not just grinding out decisions. She comes from a very, very good gym. She trains with Julian Robertson at the Goat Shed. And it's just like one of those situations where it's like every athlete coming out of there is just a killer. They're very, very always hunting for the finishes and stuff like that. And I feel like Eileen Perez is going to be able to out-grapple Rosa and get the victory here.
Yeah, good take.
Nice.
Let's move up to a very, very exciting fight, in my opinion. Grant Dawson versus Carlos Diego Ferreira. I'm gonna go with Ferreira here. You know, he's kind of been one of these guys that's always been kind of the dark horse of the division. He was in the top 15 at one point. I forget how far he made it, maybe to number 10. But he's coming off of 2 really good wins. Both TKO finishes, first over Michael Johnson, and then his last win was Mateusz Rebecki, which after that last fight that we just saw with Rebecki and Oralbai, we know how good Rebecki is. He's strong. He's got power in his hands. He's a strong grappler as well. He does tend to fade, and Grant Dawson has much better cardio than that. But man, Dawson just has some like questionable performances in the UFC, and I feel like Diego Ferreira always comes with the fight. He always shows up ready to fight. I mean, it kind of shows. He's 2-2 in his last 4, all finishes, but obviously 2 of those were losses, 2 of those were wins. But I think it just shows that he's always showing up to bring the fight. And I trust that a little more than Grant Dawson, because, like I said, Dawson has had some questionable performances.
You know, I'm gonna have to question that one a little bit, because I was just looking back at Grant Dawson's record, and he's currently 10-1 in the UFC, right? So obviously, I think he's 22-2 overall, but he's only had 1 loss in the UFC, and it was to Bobby Green with a straight left hand. So, you know, fairly safe combination for Bobby Green there to get it done. That being said, Grant Dawson's finished Joe Solecki. He's had wins over Mark Madsen, like not great wins, but consistent. He's 10-1. We're talking the only guy that he's lost to in the UFC is Bobby Green.
He took Ricky Glenn to a draw, dude. Ricky Glenn to a draw.
Okay.
Oof.
I don't know. I don't know, bro. I'm at this point where I think if we're talking about a guy that's 2-2 in his last 4 and a guy that's 10-1 overall.
Who's he fighting though, dude? Because Diego Fajeda's dude is fighting some killers, and I feel like Grant Dawson is fighting some like really like prelim heavy fighters.
Yep.
Definitely. And I don't know that that's entirely his fault. He's one of those guys where he just keeps getting put in these really odd matchups. I don't want to put his name anywhere near Alex Morono, but in my head they fight in similar kinds of fights where it's just sort of I guess let's throw this on the prelims. We got to fill a spot, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a little bit of a disservice to Grant Dawson because I do see some potential in him. And I'm hopeful that, let's keep that TKO record for Diego going, but let's make sure that it's for Grant Dawson on this one.
Yeah, I do think Grant Dawson is good, but I just want to bring up like this matchup specifically. First off,
sure.
We know that, okay, if Grant Dawson is going to win, how do you think he's going to win? Most likely submission, right?
Yeah.
We know
or TKO.
Well, I mean, yeah, but he would need to control that top position like pretty securely to be able to get a TKO over Fajeda. Fajeda's never been submitted, and he's fought guys with much better jiu-jitsu than Grant Dawson. I just think, like, stylistic wise, I think Grant Dawson would need a submission, and I just don't think on the feet he's as good as Fajeda, and I don't see him securing a position on Fajeda good enough to be able to get a submission.
I think you'd be surprised.
I think Diego Fajeda is gonna fuck Grant Dawson up, dude. I think it's gonna happen. I've picked against Grant Dawson before, and it's cost me because he is a very win-heavy fighter. He just finds ways to get the wins, like, unless you're Ricky Glenn or Bobby Green. Yeah. But I feel like Diego Fajeda has been fighting the better competition, and he's been, doing better against higher level opponents. I rate his performances a lot higher than I would rate Grant Dawson's, and it is a like Ryan was saying, a stylistic matchup. Like, I don't see Grant Dawson being able to control him on the ground as easy as he was Joe Selecki, and all that good stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Fajeda on this one.
All right,
there it is. All right, let's move up to the prelims. First fight of the prelims is Zachary Reese versus 21 Savage. No, Zachary Reese versus Cedric Dumas. I'm going to go with Reese. I like his finishing ability. I like his aggression. Looking back at Cedric Dumas's previous fights, I mean, he is good. He's good on the feet. He has the ability to put good combinations together and keep people at his range for a little bit. And then, like in the Josh Fremd fight, I mean, he got guillotined by Josh Fremd. Zachary Reese, when we're talking about submission threat and aggression, is on a much higher level than a Josh Fremd. And if Dumas is getting guillotined by Josh Fremd, I have no reason to believe that Zachary Reese won't do it as well, and probably in a more dominant and quicker fashion. So yeah, I'm going Zachary Reese, probably round 1 submission.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on this one. I'm going Zachary Reese as well. I was looking back at some of his previous performances, and I like seeing somebody that is able to get it done in a couple different ways, right? He's had some finishes on the feet. He's had some finishes by submission. He got an armbar in the first round on the Contender Series to get on the UFC. So clearly it's a guy that can find a finish wherever he wants. But in this case, I think is probably going to try and be a little bit more grapple heavy in his approach and really kind of nullify everything that Dumas has got.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Reese on this one. I just feel like he's a very physically imposing fighter. He has a very strong presence. It just feels like he's one of those people where you're not going to be able to move him around or take his punches very well because it just seems like everything he does is very solid. Cedric Dumas tends to fade and let the fight get away from him a lot. He'll be on the back foot pretty much like the whole fight if he needs to, just to have that range. or he will just get out grappled and be perfectly content on his back for the whole round. So I just feel like Zachary Reese is going to be able to physically impose any sort of game plan he has over Tadriq Dumas a lot easier. And I feel like his striking is very, very, very solid. Like when I see him, I feel like it's not the same style as like a Yuri Prohaska, but if you look when Yuri Prohaska strikes, his whole body is really putting power into that punch, and you can see the same thing with Zachary Reese. Like the technique is really nice, and you can tell it's just very, very hard hitting person.
Yeah, I agree. You can see the power really translate like through his mechanics. He just is very, like you're saying, like super imposing. Like you watch him fight, and the aggression is intimidating. He's strong, aggressive. Yeah, agreed. Let's move up. I think actually a good heavyweight fight: Jailton Almeida versus Sergey Spivak.
Yep. You know, I guess I'll start this one out. Since I've been kind of open about Jailton Almeida before, I'm not a huge fan personally. I think he's one of those guys that had a lot of hype and then just kind of really underdeveloped, underperformed, whatever you want to say. Just kind of didn't rise to the occasion. You know, I think Spivak's one of those guys that's easy to count out. He's one of those guys that I think people kind of forget about or kind of, you know, glance over in a lot of cases. But he does have a win recently over Derek Lewis, which is starting to mean a little less and less, unfortunately.
So does Jailton.
But he also has a what was that?
So does Jailton.
Yeah. You know, I just think Spivak is at a point now where the likelihood of him winning on the feet is probably a little lower than on the ground. So I think he's going to be inclined to take it there. And I don't know that Almeida is going to be able to outperform him on the ground.
Hot take.
I'm keeping that opinion.
That
I've
is
had
a
it
wild
about
take.
Almeida for a while.
That's a hot
and
take.
I'm going to keep it going.
All right. Well, I appreciate your consistency on the take.
Dude, I got to.
Yeah.
You know, there's a couple hills I'll die on, but I would not die on that one.
Sergey, not Spivak.
I'm gonna go with Jailton Almeida on this one. I feel like Sergey Spivak is his only way to find victory would be through out grappling somebody, and I feel like Jailton is a better grappler because he has more submissions over higher caliber opponents, and he's implemented his grappling a lot better than I feel like Spivak has in the past. Lately, though, you know, you never know. Spivak could be like in this little new phase of his career where he's actually taking things a lot seriously, and he's putting on better performances because he has been looking good lately, and Jailton Almeida has been looking pretty mid. But I feel like if Jailton Almeida is able to show up for this fight, it should be an easy one for him.
Yeah. I mean, Marcin Tybura was Spivak's last fight, and he looked great against Tybura. So, you know, Tybura has also been looking good recently, and I think had a recent submission win himself. So
Tybura's on fire, bro.
Yeah.
You know, if we're talking about somebody that I think did make a kind of jump in his career, I think we are seeing kind of a resurgence of Tybura. He's gotten a lot better over the last year or two, I think, even.
100%.
And I think Spivak's kind of stayed with him, so we'll see.
He's my number one fraud checker at the heavyweight division right now is Marcin
Absolutely.
Tybura.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure. And that's why, like, at the opening of when I brought up this fight, I said it's actually going to be a good heavyweight fight. Although I am picking Jailton to win in pretty dominant fashion, I do rate Sergey Spivak. I rate his wins for sure. He's also not just like this out of shape fat guy. Like Spivak is big and he's got a little bit of chunk on him, but you can see the muscle through that chunk. You know what I mean? He's a little bit bigger than Jailton. Man, Jailton just looks so freaking strong though. And I think technicality wise, when we're talking about the skill level of their grappling, I rate Jailton's technique a lot higher. So if they're going to be getting into scrambles, I'm counting on Jailton to end up on top and stay in strong position. When he gets a strong position, he's like a Hamzat level top pressure guy where it's like really, really hard to get out from under him. And I'm not saying this lightly when I think Jailton Almeida is legitimately one of the best heavyweight fighters in the world. I think especially because he's one of these guys who, like, his frame He started out at light heavyweight, but he kind of goes in between light heavyweight and heavyweight. He's a little too big for light heavyweight, but is still able to make it. And he's really, really athletic. It is very rare that you see athletic heavyweights like this, especially ones that are wrestlers. Jailton Almeida. I'm gonna say round 1 TKO or submission.
Damn, that's wild. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where as you're talking about the light heavyweights moving up or kind of being in that fluctuation, I think it goes one of two ways, right? You get the light heavyweight that has the frame to support more muscle and moves up to kind of put on a bit of size and a bit of athleticism, or you get the light heavyweight that just doesn't want to cut weight anymore.
Yeah.
And they start just getting chunky. And I do think Almeida is the guy that probably found kind of a better frame at heavyweight. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a great fight. You know what? It's going to be fun to see either way.
Yeah, agreed.
Nice.
All right. Peyton Talbot versus Raoni Barcelos. The fight that everyone wants to see. I think, listen, and all jokes aside with like people getting super hype about Peyton Talbot and jumping on the bandwagon, I think he's going to be a champion within the next year or two. I think he's like a better version of Chito Vera. This is like kind of how I look at him. Like the things that Chito needed, because Chito got so close to being able to become champion, and whether that was like preferential treatment because O'Malley was the champion and they had that prior history. I think Peyton Talbot has certain aspects of his game that will cause him to get further than, say, a Chito would. Chito is just fine with kind of losing most of the fight and hoping that he lands that one shot. Peyton Talbot walks you down the entire time. And earlier in Peyton Talbot's career, he was a little bit of a slow starter, but I think lately he's kind of realized that he needs to put on the pressure. I think the first time we saw that was in the Cameron Simon fight, where people were talking about Peyton Talbot being a slow starter because he knows how good he is and he knows that he's going to win the fight regardless. Like if the fight just goes on forever, he is pretty confident that he's going to win. But in that Cameron Simon fight, we saw him put the pedal to the metal immediately and, man, just absolutely beat the brakes off of Simon. And then the fight after that, 19-second KO. Yeah, man, I think it's no secret. I've made a video specifically on why I think Peyton Talbot is going to be champion, and I have not changed my mind. I think after this, they're going to give him a top 10 opponent, and after that, I think he'll be next in line for the title. That's just my honest opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have to agree with you, right? He's one of those guys where he's consistently gotten better every fight, and he was already good to start. He's got a big arsenal. I mean, I was looking back at it too, and I thought this was cool as you were talking about him kind of finding this realization to start putting the pressure on every fight he's finished a round sooner than the fight before.
Yeah.
So, like, again, somebody that's clearly getting better, finding his momentum, and then really kind of starting to hone what I think is going to be a pretty notable title run here pretty soon.
Yeah.
He's got the skill, he's got the pressure, he's got the finishing ability everywhere. I don't think this is one of those kids that's hype. I think this is the real deal for sure.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, man. I feel like what makes Peyton Talbot so special on this in his skill set is that he's very good at making reads and counter striking at a high level. That's why I feel like as he's progressing more in his training and the more experience he gets, he's getting faster victories because it's taking him a lot less time to make those reads. So even like off the first leg kick that his opponent threw on his last fight, he got the KO. And, whether it was mind games of releasing the video of how to beat him, because remember how he did that? He was like, if you were going to beat me, this was how you would do it.
Yeah.
You stop me with leg kicks and stuff like that. And the guy goes out there to throw a leg kick and he counters him immediately.
Yeah.
So it just shows you that he's just really good at making reads.
Yeah.
And he's starting to really trust his hands a lot more because he does have knockout power and he's so fast. Mm. So I feel like this is going to be probably a tougher fight than people would expect. I don't think it's going to be like he's going to run through him in the first round. Maybe like a second round KO over Ronnie. Yeah. But I do feel like it's going to be a showcase fight for Peyton Talbot, and he should be looking at a top 10 fight after this.
Yeah. And just to go a little bit off of what you said, like it's not necessarily going to be a super easy fight. That's why, like in the video that I made before about how I think Peyton Talbot's going to become champion, I think this is one of those matchups that, now Peyton Talbot is 3-0 in the UFC. This is one of those matchups that if you look back, they gave Umar the Raoni Barcelos matchup as well after 3 or 4 fights in the UFC. And I think it's because people know that Raoni Barcelos is actually good, and a win over him gains respect. It's not just like, oh, we're giving him Raoni Barcelos because we know he's going to beat him, and it's just another win for Peyton Talbot. It's the way people are going to think about him after he beats Raoni Barcelos because of Raoni's skill level. So I think it's just going to build more respect on Peyton Talbot's name after this, and will justify him getting a high level opponent after.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Let's move up. Oh no, Johnny Walker versus Bogdan Guskov got canceled. If you guys haven't seen that yet, got canceled. Johnny Walker got injured a couple days ago, but they haven't taken it off the website yet. So it still shows that this matchup is happening, but seems like it's definitely canceled.
Yeah.
That sucks. I wanted to see Bogdan fight, dude. He's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And the Walker matchup would have been pretty sick too. Like,
yeah.
But
they'll probably remake this same matchup. I don't see them giving a different fight because this one didn't work out. I see them rebooking this fight.
Yeah, it's like another pay-per-view that needs some help because there's some pay-per-views that need some spots to be filled coming up. So maybe if the injury's not so bad, then Johnny Walker can, make a quick turnaround and hop back in there.
Yeah, maybe they put it on 313.
Yeah, 'cause I feel like Bogdan would have got another meme KO out of Johnny Walker. I would have felt like
I think so too.
Cartoon knockout,
Pretty probable. But with that being said, let's move up to the first fight on the main card: Kevin Holland versus Rainier de Ridder.
Oh, here we go.
All right,
dude.
Here we go. Who's going to start this one?
Martin, I want to hear your take, Martin. I want to hear you start it.
Alrighty. I know we're gonna probably not agree on this one, but I just want to preface this by saying I was a really big fan of Kevin Holland when he was moving his way up. Right around when he just had all that momentum, and I just remember every single time I was getting heartbroken by him getting wrestle fucked by like Marvin Vittori, by fucking Derek Brunson, by who else wrestle fucked him? There was one other person that did it pretty bad. Hamzat Chimaev, but he does that to everybody. You can't really fault him for that.
Yeah.
And I just feel like he has the weapons to put away Rainier de Ridder. He has really nice, accurate, straight punches. Rainier de Ridder has absolutely terrible defense when it comes to striking. He gets hit coming in. But I just feel like Rainier de Ridder is going to figure out a way to get it to the ground, and it's going to be that's it for Kevin Holland. I 100% can see how you guys would believe that Kevin Holland is just going to flatline Rainier de Ridder with a nice 2 like he hit Joaquin Buckley with. But I feel like I remember when I was waiting for that to happen against other really strong wrestlers, and it just never came. So I feel like Rainier de Ridder is a one champion. He only has 2 losses. He was a champ down at 1. And it's a quick turnaround from his last fight, which, he was getting outstruck by fucking Mearshart, you know what I'm saying? Like, but at the end of the day, he still got him to the ground, and he's very, very slick. He's almost like a middleweight Paddy Pimblett with how he grapples. So I'm going to go with Rainier de Ridder on this one by submission, probably underneath the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
And, that's my take, boys.
I actually don't think it's as bad of a take as a lot of people think. I see 2 things, 2 possible paths for this fight to go down. Because, okay, first off, the first path, which I think is the more likely, Kevin Holland just sleeps him. Like, it's not even close. Rainier de Ridder doesn't even get anything off, gets like barely any striking off, maybe 1 or 2 shitty takedown attempts, and then Kevin Holland just sleeps him. However, there is this part of Kevin Holland's game where even if he's like he's got decent takedown defense, but you can see it in certain fights where he literally just like halfway through a takedown attempt just decides to get taken down. Like, I don't know why he does it. I don't know why he does it, but every time you're like, dude, that one was so easily defendable. You like legitimately chose to get taken down. And I don't know what it is. I don't know why he decides to do it, because it literally seems like a decision that he makes. Like, all right, I'm going to get taken down now. And so those are the two paths that I see. I think the first path is more likely, but I think the second path is not impossible.
You know, Martin, I'm actually kind of not super far off from where you were at. I was thinking about this fight, had the full Doctor Strange, like staring at all of the realities, and the one that seemed to be the most true, honestly, was one that felt a lot like Adesanya, where I could see Kevin Holland having a lot of success standing, and then something happens, he grabs an ankle, and it's over. You know, it's maybe it's the Dutch, maybe it's something in their blood where they just have that goofy ass shit that works. But there's part of me that thinks De Ridder, you know, whether or not he has good enough stand up to stand with Kevin Holland, I think is irrelevant. I think as long as he's durable enough to get close, I think he's going to be very persistent about trying to get this fight to the ground, and could be willing to take a few on the way in, even if he gets dazed, if he can grab a hold of a leg and just maybe recover there for a second and then move forward. You know, as much as it pains me to see Kevin Holland lose, I think De Ridder's going to get it done either by like a TKO or more likely a submission.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I hate that like part of me agrees with you, because I can just see it in my head right now. Rainier De Ridder is rushing forward, trying to get a really sloppy takedown. Kevin Holland is clipping him with some really nice, like, in-close hooks. Then Rainier puts him against the fence, and Holland just like
chest out, dude.
Holland just like pulls guard for some reason.
Yep.
I could see it.
And then it's over.
I could see it.
Dude, Kevin Holland, I think a big thing with him too is he really puts a lot of faith in his own jiu-jitsu, because I think he is a black belt.
That's why.
So he puts a lot of faith in his own jiu-jitsu off his back, and I feel like that's what ends up, you know, making things go south for him, because he just ends up on his back for most of the fight.
Yeah.
And he's not the best at getting back up. So, but yeah, man, I just feel like Rainier De Ridder's gonna fucking out-grapple him like we've seen a million times before.
I sure hope not. Yeah. I hope we see like another version of like Kevin Holland versus Fluffy Hernandez. I think if you're Kevin Holland, that's the type of game plan you need to have coming out.
Yeah.
Just hurt him early and finish him. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Get him out of there.
Get him out. All right. Honestly, another really, really close fight on paper here. Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. Who wants to take the reins?
Dude, I'll take that one. Speaking of getting out grappled, you know, I think Moicano's kind of found his stride recently. I think he's found the formula that works really well for him. I think after his last performance against Saint Denis, we really saw an evolution of what Renato Moicano could be. And I think that is weaponizing his jiu-jitsu to set up striking. He's got a very good ground game. He seems very willing to try and get the fight there. And more so, he's just really great at maintaining that pressure once he finds it. I don't know that Beneil is going to have the answer to that. We saw against Charles Oliveira that he kind of folded once the pressure started getting pushed on him, especially if he ends up against the cage. I don't know that he has the solution to that problem. And I don't know that Moicano is going to let up on that pressure, especially against the cage. I think he's going to try and utilize that to his advantage to try and set up a takedown.
Yeah, I don't know. This one, the more I think about it, the less I really know where the fight's going to go. Beneil Dariush is like kind of, he's very strong, even though he doesn't look very strong. Yeah. Moicano gets like all of his takedowns out in the open. He really likes that body lock drag down. Yeah. Sometimes he'll do a body lock lift, but oftentimes you just see he gets really, really good position with the body lock. Sometimes makes his way around to the back before even dragging them down. I could see him doing that, but Beneil is, people tend to underestimate him because of his appearance, but his grappling is super high level. I don't know. This one is still a toss-up for me. I think, like, if, gun to my head, if I had to make a decision, I'm probably going Moicano. He's a little cleaner on the feet. Man, I just don't see Moicano getting, like, subbed by Dariush, nor do I see him getting TKO'd. I think, I'm going to go with Moicano. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Moicano on this one. I feel like this is a very pivotal fight for both of these careers, for both fighters. I feel like they both want to make a run towards the title, and this is really their last shot. Like, whoever loses this one is probably not going to get a shot at the title for the rest of their career, So, because lightweight is such a competitive division, there's so much going on there all the time, and it's just really hard to get wins going together. But I feel like Moicano has had the better momentum. He's fought the better fighters as of lately and had more success. I know Dariush just fought like Oliveira and stuff like that, but he kind of got ran through in that fight.
Yeah.
He did.
And,
and Arman after that.
Yeah. And then, Moicano has really been putting on amazing performances. Like what he did to Benoit Saint Denis, how he was just able to completely manhandle him, because when he himself is a pretty decent grappler, and just take advantage of his how he would have these terrible entries, and then Moicano would really capitalize on it. So it just shows that he's very good at like creating counter game plans towards what people are trying to plan on against him and stuff like that. So I feel like Moicano is going to come in there and probably shoot for some takedowns and try and get another TKO on the ground.
Yeah, and with them both being grapplers, I rate Moicano's ability to get the takedown and actually bring the fight there to where he wants it. I rate that a little bit higher than Dariush. Dariush usually just kind of finds himself there, whereas Moicano, he actually pushes for the takedown and usually gets it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, let's move up. Another very exciting one. Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. I'm very excited to hear what you guys think about this one.
This might be my favorite fight from the card. And there's so many good fights on this card. My initial thought to this is, what are we doing with the division if Jiri wins? Are we really going to do Poatan versus Yuri Prochazka 3?
No. We still have Ankalaev in there.
So then it's going to be a really weird situation. What do you do with Yuri if he wins this? And so there's that.
What do you do with Hill if he wins it? I don't think you do a Hill rematch with Pereira either. He got slept.
I think that's a little more feasible, though. I think the beef with Hill and the fact that Hill is such a loss denier.
Yeah,
I feel like that rematch makes more sense in the UFC's eyes than Yuri 3.
But it's not enough to jump the line in front of Ankalaev.
It's not, and I don't think he will.
Ankalaev, no, but
I don't think he will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I just think that if Hill wins, there's just so much extra storyline that you can, tag on to the second fight. Be like, oh, there was the low blow. I wasn't ready.
Oh, he was ready. He threw a punch.
I know he was.
He threw the first punch.
Preach to the choir. I'm just saying what the narratives are. I know.
They do the boxing gloves getting thrown at his feet in the gym. Like there's Be Real for that promotion.
Yeah.
So
versus the other options, just Jiri getting knocked out twice.
They show the UFC PI footage from a different angle of them throwing the gloves, and they have like all that shit going, in black and white.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That being said, my heart says Jiri. Jiri's one of my favorites for sure. His chin has been tested recently, and it's been a little concerning. Jamal obviously has power. I think he has the ability to finish this fight, and if he lands flush, probably will knock out Prochazka. That being said, I hope Prochazka can be weird enough, elusive enough, whatever it might be, unorthodox enough to be able to kind of find those positions where he's really able to pull off some of those stranger techniques, like the spinning elbow he did against Dominic Reyes, where it's in that moment of chaos.
Yeah.
So, my heart's picking on this one for sure, and I'm going with Jiri.
Yeah. My brain says Hill. My heart says Yuri.
Yeah.
And man, I'm just gonna pick Yuri. I'm just gonna pick Yuri. I think on paper this is a really close one, but I'm gonna pick Yuri.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I actually really rate Jamal Hill highly. I know he's kind of like the laughing stock of light heavyweight right now because of how he handled the loss to Pereira. But what he did to Glover, what he did to a lot of his other opponents, the knockouts that he has are amazing. He's really good with his hands. But the thing that I feel like is going to lose this fight for Jamal Hill is going to be his lack of leg kicking ability, and I feel like you just need that to beat Yuri Prochazka. Yes. Jamal Hill is not one of these people that throws like low calf kicks or attacks the lead leg at all. He really is boxing heavy, and I feel like you need to somehow stop Yuri from having such a strong base and such a strong stance in order to like beat him. Rakic had a great game plan attacking that lead leg because he's so heavy on his in his base. Yep. And I feel like if Jamal Hill's not able to address his stance and address where all of his power comes from and momentum, it's going to be a long night for him. Another thing Yuri Prochazka does really well is he uses like really good head movement against boxing. So it's very unorthodox and he keeps his hands low, but it's because he has good head movement and good intercepting counters. So I feel like that's where he's going to have success against Jamal Hill. I feel like when you're looking at Jamal Hill, it's just like some basic slap boxing, but it's very effective. I always like to describe Jamal Hill's fighting style as like he's probably like the best slap boxer on the world. Because if you like take him to like a boxing gym, they're gonna like look at how he throws his punches, where he keeps his hands, how his technique looks, and they're gonna be like, it looks really ugly. But if you like catch him on a basketball court, man, he has the best hands in the West.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's it's just a very good style, but I feel like Yuri Prochazka is going to be able to address it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. He's seen that style before. I don't think it's gonna be anything too weird for him. Whereas like on the opposing side, Hill hasn't really fought anyone with the weird style like Yuri.
No.
All right, moving up to the co-main event. A little bit of beef on this one. Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. I'll give my thoughts here first. I'm going Umar. Say what you will about he kind of got a little fast-tracked. Regardless of getting fast-tracked, I think he's better everywhere. I don't see Merab taking Umar down. I could see like maybe out of the 30 takedown attempts that Merab has, I could see maybe he gets Umar down for one of them. But I see Umar getting back up right away. I just don't see anywhere where Merab really has a path to victory here.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement. It's one of those things where this is the ideal way to nullify Merab, right? If you take that like wrestling attempt style that Merab has where he just likes to fail takedowns, then I think Umar is the perfect candidate to capitalize on that, right? Because, the pressure, the time, I'm going to put you against the cage and burn the clock. Maybe I'll shoot for a submission just to kind of punch you a couple times. I don't think that's going to work on Umar, and I think if anything, it's going to get reversed on Merab. I think it's a pretty clear one for Umar here as well.
Yeah, man, I feel like this could actually be a very entertaining fight because it's going to really force some action out of Merab that we're not used to seeing, because we always talk about Merab's cardio and how he can shoot fail endless takedowns and really milk the clock. But I feel like since he's not going to be able to do that against Umar, he's going to need to show other parts of his game, which I don't feel like are up to par with Umar Nurmagomedov's skills. So I feel like Umar's going to take this one pretty easy. I feel like he's going to be more entertaining as a champion, if I'm being honest with you. Because just something about, like, I know Merab's, like, really fun and, like, charismatic and stuff like that, but I just feel like the system is broken if you're able to fail 30 takedowns and win a fight. And I just feel like I haven't been happy since that Jose Aldo fight, man. So I'm finally stoked to see Merab get his ass kicked. Hopefully it's by Umar. And, I'm stoked for this one.
Yeah, even though we all think Umar is going to win, I do not think this is going to be an exciting fight. I think this is going to, especially because it's at the end of the card, this is going to be one where I start to doze off a little bit during this one.
That's my fear.
I could see the first like immediately just being able to tell that this fight is not going to go anywhere. And I could see it being like a 49-46 type of deal for Umar, and it just being like one of the most boring fights ever. The press conference is going to be great. The press conference is going to be great because Umar is just like real solid, doesn't really budge. You know, he doesn't really like fuck around too much. If you see him get flustered or upset, he's like saying some real shit. Whereas like Merab, on the other hand, just fucking has no idea what he's saying. Oh my God.
I feel like Merab just says shit sometimes, man. He's one of those guys where the words keep coming out of his mouth, but the thoughts stopped 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. Guys, and listen, guys, I train, and I not just train wrestling, I train boxing, and listen, guys, one more thing, and Dude. Oh my God. That's going to be the entire press conference, and then it's going to be fucking Manel Kopp versus Muhammad Makhachev all over again.
Oh my God. 49-46
I'm telling
Umar.
you, that's exactly what this fight is going to be.
Umar is just real confident, man. You could just tell, like when they did that kickoff press conference, and Merab just like lost his fucking mind, and then like Umar's like, brother, calm down, like it's okay. Yeah. Just like, oh my goodness, dude. I just feel like, Merab is so easily rattled, you know.
Yeah.
He fights fans out in the crowd sometimes. At grappling events, he'll just start swinging on people.
Yeah.
Starts yelling at other corners like he did in the Sean fight.
Yeah. Living rent free, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's going to be a funny lead up, and then Umar is going to just decision the shit out of him. That's it.
Yeah.
All right, well, that brings us to Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan.
Oof.
I think we're going to get a more exciting outcome than the first fight. I think.
Mm-hmm.
First fight was pretty exciting.
A ton of scrambles. I mean, you know, I'm a big fan of the wrestling aspect of MMA. That was some of the best scrambling I've ever seen in an MMA fight.
Yeah.
I see Islam coming out on top in this second fight, though. I think personally he's more improved. I think his finishing ability. He's really added this ability to his game to where when he knows he's in an advantageous position, he really takes advantage of it. I see Islam finishing him, honestly. Probably in the later rounds, round 4-ish, somewhere around round 4.
Yeah, you know, I'm kind of in agreement with you. I think this is one of those cases where we're getting a title fight where it is probably the two best people in the division, right? This is going to be one of those fights where it's like, okay, this is clearly a reason for this fight. They're both at the top of the division. They're both really high level. I do think Islam has improved more since the last time they fought.
Yeah.
You know, Islam has really stepped up his striking game. I mean, obviously both incredibly high level grapplers, and to the point where, you know, those exchanges may not make a difference, and the difference may be on the feet because they're both going to be able to nullify each other's game to some extent. That being said, I mean, Arman's got some great stand-up as well. He's got those really unorthodox kicks. He's got that crazy axe kick that he's set up a couple times. But I have to go with Islam on this one as well. I think Team Khabib here, Umar and Islam for the two titles at this one, but I think it's going to probably be, I could even see this going to decision. I don't know that anybody gets finished in this fight. I think it's a war, and I think we get all 5 rounds out of this one.
Yeah, I think that's likely.
Yeah.
I also think it's going to go to decision. And I know a lot of other people are picking Arman for this fight for the upset. But like Ryan was saying, I just feel like Islam really has improved the most. I just feel like Islam has improved the most since their last fight. And I feel like he has a lot more methods to victory. He's fought the Volkanovski fights. I feel like I put those so highly because he was fighting somebody with a lighter weight class skill set, very fast, very good striking, very good anti-wrestling, all that good stuff. And he was able to really show that he was levels above. So I feel like with that, Arman being that sort of same kind of build, a little bit shorter, a little bit stockier, he's going to have a lot of success on the feet. But I feel like where Islam shines the most is securing the submissions once he's already rocked you on the feet. And I don't think he's going to be able to secure the submissions, but I think he's going to have the success on the feet, but the fight will go to decision. So I feel like Arman is, even if he's pretty much on death's door, is going to be able to defend Islam's submissions. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of big moments on the feet that are going to come from Islam's side. And I feel like Islam's going to get the decision.
Yeah, no, I agree. And man, it is, probably one of the, I mean, I would go out on a limb and say this is probably on paper the closest matchup on the entire card. And there's quite a few of those on 311. But looking at how the first fight went, looking at how their skills line up, even though I do feel like Islam has improved more than Arman has improved, since their first fight, Arman has lost to Gamrot. He had that really, really close fight with Charles, although, he did clearly beat Charles. Had that been a 5-round fight, maybe gone a little bit differently. I don't see Islam losing to Gamrot. We see what Islam did to Charles. And you could talk MMA math all you want, but I just see the improvements that Islam's made, especially towards finishing guys when he knows he has them hurt. I could see Islam hurting Arman at some point during this fight, and I think those improvements that Islam has made in his ability to read how the fight is going, I think that's going to help him out a lot.
Yeah, man. What I like a lot about Islam is that he not only has all of the skill sets to be one of the greatest in the world, pound for pound, but he's also just such a genius, like a combat genius, man. He's really good at, doing his homework on his opponents, reflecting on his own wins. Like I always see Islam Makhachev critiquing his own performances after the fact. And, he's just a really humble guy. And I just feel like that sort of mindset is fucking, a 1 in a million. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of those things that I think to some point you can't develop, right? Like the fight IQ, you can always improve. You can always be a better version of yourself. But there's some guys that just have a different way of looking at it and understanding where they are in a fight that separates them from other people. And Islam is one of those guys that just kind of knows the right path when he sees it pretty consistently.
Yeah, Agreed. So we're all going Islam here.
I think so.
All right. Well, that's the final pick for this card. UFC 311 coming up this weekend. It kind of feels like the first card back because the fights we had yesterday Saturday, excuse me, were it was a good card, but when you look at them back to back, it's like this is what we were all looking forward to. It was kind of easy to overlook the card on Saturday and just be looking forward to this one. But those are our picks. Let us know in the comments what you guys think. I think it's going to be a really exciting card overall. But like I said, let us know in the comments. Please like, subscribe, comment, do all the things. All the interaction helps. We took a little hiatus for the holidays, but we're back in full swing. And thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.
Peace.
Adios.